Welcome back. So, in the first lecture, we looked at Plato's definition of democracy. And it was not a very favorable definition, but we understand that he was writing in the context of Athens having lost the war to Sparta, and so he thought that democracy was a very flawed system. Many millennia later, well, 2 millennia and a bit later, the famous British statesman Winston Churchill said of democracy that it's the worst political system, except for all the other political systems. So that may be the more commonly held view, at least in contemporary democracies today, that yes, it's a messy system, yes, it's difficult to administer, but it's better than its alternatives, because we've tried all sorts of other forms of government and they have generally tended not to end all that well. So we're talking more about democracy now, but we're going to be looking at one of the central aspects of democracy, which is justice. So without justice, without law and order, but also rights and responsibilities, there can be no such thing as a functioning democracy. So the question then becomes, what is justice? Well, that is a very difficult question to answer, and one that has been grappled with for many millennia. We are going to be looking at this play over here, this trilogy of plays by Aeschylus, the Oresteia, Agamemnon, the Libation Bearers, and the Eumenides. 3 plays. They won't take too long to read, but you should take your time as you work through them because they're quite complex and intricate. And at the center of this all lies the question, what is justice? So let's think about that in a number of different ways. So firstly, justice in this sense and in the sociological definition of it is sometimes contrasted with honor. So there's a justice society and an honor society. So what exactly is an honor society? Well, an honor-based society is one that has existed for most times and in most places. And it still exists in many parts of the world, and it exists even in certain spaces in American society today. So some even argue, in fact, most argue that the Old South was a form of honor culture. So what exactly is this? Well, in an honor culture, if you come around to my house and you steal something from me, then I'm going to have to come around to your house and burn it down because you shouldn't have stolen from me. But what happens now? Well, I burnt your house down. What are you going to do? You're just going to let that be? Just accept that I burnt your house down? No, of course not. You're going to come around to my house and maybe you're going to kill someone. And then what do you think I'm going to do? Well, I can't just accept that. I can't take that. So I'm going to come around to your house and I'm going to kill someone. And then you're going to come around to my house and kill someone. And then I'm going to come around to your house and kill someone. And you can come to my... And as you can see, this leads to an endless circle of violence, right? So at the center of this concept is, if you do something to me or someone in my clan, then I have to take the responsibility and do that back to you. So this still exists in certain like gang cultures, or it's found in prison systems sometimes. And as I said, it exists around many parts of the world and is in a sense the norm that has existed through most of human history. So then what is a justice culture? So a justice culture is something that is slightly different to that, and that is what we are used to today, living in a democracy in the 21st century in the United States. A justice society is where the state is powerful enough to come down and intervene in conflicts between people. So, if you come around to my house and steal something, I don't need to burn down your house because I can call the police, and the police will arrest you and you'll go to court, and if you're found guilty, you'll go to jail. And if I or you or somebody was to kill somebody, then it wouldn't be necessary for that person's family to come back and kill one of us, because they would call the police, and the police would take us to jail, and we would go to court, and if we were found guilty, we would do some long time in prison, and that would be that. So, what is the benefit of a justice society? Well, history has shown that justice societies tend to be less violent than honor-based societies, because there doesn't have to be this constant perpetual motion of murder and revenge and murder and revenge and murder and revenge. What are some of the downfalls to it? Well, is justice always administered evenly? Does everyone get a fair shake in the justice system? Do some people or some groups of people maybe end up getting prejudiced against in certain ways? That very much seems to be the case. So there is no perfect solution to justice, right? But there are clearly situations in societies that are preferable to other situations in societies when it comes to dealing with criminal infractions. Now, the worst kind of crime today, and through most of human history, or all of human history even, has been murder. So when you murder another human being, that is a terrible thing, and there needs to be some kind of response to this, right? So this is where this story begins. Some of you, if you've taken my 201 class, then you would maybe already have read this, or otherwise you will have read the Odyssey and the Iliad, or at least one or the other. So you know about the Trojan War. Now, in the Trojan War, Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, who was the wife of Menelaus, was seduced by Paris, the Trojan prince, and taken off to Troy. And so Menelaus and his brother Agamemnon led a war effort to go back and get her, and they fought this long war for many years, and they ended up burning down the city of Troy. Now, this story begins after this war, when Agamemnon, one of the leaders in this war, and the brother of Menelaus, comes back home. Okay, so now, to understand exactly what's going on, you need to also know that he, Agamemnon, had sacrificed his own daughter, Iphigenia, okay, so that the wind could blow, so that the gods would blow the winds, so that they might sail to Troy. So he had killed his own daughter. Okay, now he returns many years later, and his wife, Clytemnestra, has been ruling in his absence. But she is angry, right? She is very angry because, well, daughter murderer is returning. And so what is she going to do about that? Well, we were speaking earlier about an honor-based society in which there isn't really recourse to a legal system. So Clytemnestra is going to have to take matters into her own hands, if you know what I'm saying. And spoiler alerts, Agamemnon, he meets a grisly end. And the first play is very violent, full of brutality and darkness. And basically his murder, and then Clytemnestra assuming control of this state, is where that play ends. Okay, so is that then perfect justice, right? Has justice been done? Or what are we going to do about the fact that Clytemnestra is now a murderer, and she has killed her own husband? Well, that can't be just left to be either. So we then move into the second play. And in the second play, I'm not going to go into all the details because you're going to have to read all of these yourself, but let's just say there is more murder, and we get the sense that we may be trapped in this eternal cycle of murder and vengeance, and murder and vengeance, and murder and vengeance. And the gods get involved, of course, because this is ancient Greece. So Apollo is involved, and later on Athena is involved. So Athena, as you may know, is the goddess of wisdom. So she is extremely wise. And Athena is able to find a solution to this apparently intractable, unsolvable problem. And part of what she does is she establishes an Areopagus, and an Areopagus is the Greek, or was the ancient Greek equivalent of today's jury system, where a series of human citizens become the judges over the person who's committed the crime, and they decide whether this person is innocent or guilty. At the same time, this appears in the very last play called the Eumenides, and the Eumenides means the kindly ones, but the kindly ones before this point had been known as the Furies, and you will meet the Furies in this story. You may have come across them in some other forms of Greek epic poetry or plays. And the Furies were these female goddesses who took vengeance, and they had to avenge unavenged murders and so on. And with the help of Athena, she transforms them into the Eumenides, which are the kindly ones, and they become the sort of upholders of justice. So they are the ancient gods of Greece. And she, through her wisdom and through the establishment of this Areopagus, allows them to be transformed into something else. So she takes this like primal energy, in a sense, of vengeance and turns it into an energy of justice, which allows for order to be restored, so that the constant cycle of vengeance does not have to keep going on and on and on and on. So that's a central theme that runs through this whole play. At the same time, there are gender relations that exist here, power relations, like who gets punished more for what they've done. You may see that you may wonder, like, is everything really fair by the end? Has justice really been restored? Have some people been cheated? Or how brilliant is this system? And maybe you'll think it's brilliant and perfect, maybe you'll think it's slightly unfair. Pay attention to all the different characters and what they do. Pay attention to the gods and their different roles. Pay attention to this development from honor-based vengeance through to the establishment of justice. And then think about how having a justice system that functions is essential to democracy, right? To a stable society, because a democracy, as we understand it, is a place in which people have some kind of equality, an equality of rights and protection from the law. So without a justice system, you can't have a democracy. And we are not the first people to contend with this complex issue. It goes all the way back through history. That's where we often find ourselves returning to the Greeks. So read Aeschylus, reflect on these ideas. I look forward to reading your posts. Thank you.